Hey there, Goa fans. This is Mark DJ Solitaire here with episode 163 of Retro Goa Explorations, my series in which I present in each episode one of my favorite tracks from the 1990s Goa Trance psychedelic dance movement. So we are currently in the 98 to 99 season, at least I think we are. And this is a track that I was actually a bit hazy about when I got it, and I had to check. It was released on a Flying Rhino compilation in March 99. Now, the music was really changing at this time. And so I was finding it actually quite challenging to find stuff that really appealed to me. And so quite often, I would get compilations and, maybe one or two tracks would appeal to me, maybe none of them. But this is one that sure did. And it's a powerful, deep, twisted nighttime stormer that I just adore, and I immediately took to it. And the extra fun bit to do with this is it was probably at least 10 years later, if not more, that I discovered that I knew the artists who made it quite well, in fact. So this is a track by Astronomix called Afterlife that was released on the fourth Flying Rhino compilation, Velocity, in March 99. So I do remember playing this track in my sets in Japan when I was there in the 98 to 99 season. I was just pretty hazy about when I actually got this one. My sets sort of the later part of 98. I was playing a little less regularly, a bit more underground. And, I mean, some of these tracks came to me, I've really got, there was this one club I used to play at in a fun, regular ongoing party, actually, it just started building up sort of towards the end of 98 into 99. And I just couldn't remember. I was like, oh, did I play this at this party or that party? So I know all of you are just amazed generally that I can remember any of these things. But in any case, this one I was unclear of whether it was, before this break that I took at the early, January. I came back to Canada for a bit and then back to Japan. And I couldn't remember if it was before or after that. And it was after. So it was March 99. Sam Elcox is one of the producers of this track, and that's his project, Astronomix. And the other member at the time who was making some of the tracks with him was Harry Kanelopoulos, if I'm pronouncing it properly. It's all Greek to me. So I knew both of them because Sam and Richard Purple lived together in my neighborhood of Tufnell Park in London. And that is where I met Harry also. And Harry was this phenomenal DJ. And he and I just hit it off absolutely brilliantly. We played at a couple of house parties together in London in the summer of 97. I think possibly also a small outdoor one. But a fabulous DJ, really, real sense of style and, big sort of the big storytelling kind of thing. And so, I was playing this track for quite a while because it was one of these, I think it really fits with a certain style of nighttime track. And I really don't remember. It was in the late, first decade of 2000s or in the teens of the 2000s that I found out that this track was by Sam. I mean, it absolutely blew my mind because, I used to see Sam all the time at his place and he had this, giant mixing desk, in this house studio and would go over, but he was always working on stuff. And I'm not sure that I ever heard finished tracks at the time, so he always had things on the go. Super nice guy and friendly. But, Richard and I, spent a lot of time up in that sort of room of his, listening to, discovering as a child I could walk on the ceiling and Prometheus process, clarity from deep fog and so on, stories that I've told before. So there we go. So this is just a fabulous track. Absolutely love it. It was, again, it was a real favorite at the time. And so let's give it a listen. It's been quite a while since I listened to this one. So, I've listened a few times before filming, and I'm looking forward to rediscovering some fabulous things in this track. So here we go. Afterlife by Astronomix. So, nice eerie beginning. Love those sounds that are these little, I don't know what to call them actually. I mean, they're not really bleeps, but they're pretty cool murmuring sounds. Notice that rapid fire and the kick just coming in. Nice smooth intro to the kick, right? Rather than it just coming in at full volume. And so, this is one of these tracks that's, quite abstract at this point. Always been a major part of Goa stuff, right? Where it really sounds quite computerized. So some of those cool little woodblock sounds reminds me of Process, the X1 and so on. That steady sort of extreme style 16th note bass. Love this. So, and again, one of the fascinating things here is it's dark and there's some uplifting stuff. I say right as that super dark sound comes in. It's that yin and yang balance. There's always some contrast going on. Love that long squelchy sound. And just this, simple note change, and then back to the main key. This, remember, I always loved this. So another thing that's great here is, you have these long legato, those smooth lyrical lines, along with stuff that's chopped up. So again, there's that yin-yang balance. It's not all the same kind of thing going on at the same time. Interesting voices. I really think this kind of stuff is just a really important part of the nighttime journey. Really key riff here. Notice the patterning here. And then back at the top. Sounds like a few different things. I mean, it's just, I get really, sort of imagine the setting of this kind of thing, like this, it could be the spaceship kind of, revving its engines, but also a lot of these things just sound like some kind of communication, like these voices, like the inflection of this melodic riff. Very voice-like. pause in the proceedings here. So they're just sort of here at this point wondering what's going on. And you're back in this whole other dimension. There's that hi-hat there. And that more squelchy voices. And these shapes are really beautifully panned and wow, just love this abstract kind of extraterrestrial outer space noise. Very catchy little hook, that riff. Wonderful build up here. So again, you know, that blend of moods. There's this expansive, you know, almost uplifting quality, yet it's got that very dark flavor. That hook just repeating. It's got a great rhythm to it as well. Gives it, you know, so the shaping and the rhythm will get really catchy. Then end with a little bit of math. Goodness me, quite a high power track. Really amazing stuff. And as I was saying, I mean, you know, I think there's a lot of talk about, you know, what's Goa and what's the Goa sound and what's Goa, you know, trance. And as I've named before, you know, quite a few people, you know, didn't like the term Goa trance to begin with. And, you know, what started happening was is things started getting locked down in terms of, you know, these are the styles that are around, you know, that this is what qualifies as Goa trance. When, you know, the scene was always open. And, you know, there was no Goa, the stuff that people first started playing there was not Goa trance, but it became perceived as Goa trance. And it was just music that was played. And that was then being made for these parties when this kind of quantum shift took place around 93, 94. And so, you know, that dark, broody, nighttime stuff has always been part of it. It's not just the uplifting stuff. And, you know, the uplifting stuff is also part of it. Like there's a whole range. There's stuff that's really more overtly melodic. There's a stuff with these sort of, different harmonic frameworks than the standard, Western classical model. There's this really orchestral stuff. There's the real abstract kind of thing. There's these, there's all these different flavors. And so, this particular kind of sound was one that I always really liked. Now, I think things now have gotten into this whole, really dark vortex these days with a lot of the sound that's being played at kind of really incredibly fast BPM. And a lot of, I mean, sure, the sounds are interesting and there can be interesting ones, but I don't get the story. And what I also don't get a lot of the time, of course there are going to be tracks where, there's quality always. But I think, the general framework can be really dark twisted, lots of cool sounds, and a lot of it's just happening with presets and cool, that sounds great, let's capture that, which can be, of course, fine, right? Discovering things by accident, but the actual shaping and the story can be lacking, and also the opposing elements. So, you write something dark, where's the light? You write light music, where's a little bit of it's a little hook that you can have that shows that, everything is always, there's always more going on. It's never just one flavor. And as I've stated before, that's the thing that really gets me about our scene, I think, is that a lot of the music has such a range that quite often in the same track simultaneously, you have more than one emotional framework or more than one emotion, that's being stimulated. And that's the case here. I think we have light, we have dark, we have mysterious, there's broody, but there's kind of celebratory at the same time, but there's a bit of angst and there's a bit of, there's all these different things. So I think if our scene is going to continue evolving, one of the things we're going to need is really that more of this balance of opposing elements working together, which, philosophically, you take a look at how do you get opposing forces to cooperate and collaborate. I mean, that's what creates peace. And I think that's something, again, in the music that can help us reunify uh, in ourselves and with each other. So there we are. Little philosophical extrapolation from this music. It's always something I enjoy doing. I will sign off here and leave you with the whole track without my excessive blah blah over it. And so you can enjoy that incredible sound design and journey. I am Mark, DJ Solitaire, wrapping up episode 163 of Retro Goa Explorations and leaving you now with Afterlife by Astronomix.